I'm Jarrett Carpenter, and this is Future Signal. On this episode, let's dive in and explore the simple question: when will one Bitcoin be able to buy one house? To do this, we are going to focus on the U.S. housing market. And when I was starting to create the slideshow, thinking about this episode, I went right to Google and I said, Google, what is the average house cost in the United States? What is it, And so the first thing that it hit was from Zillow, very reputable source when it comes to overall housing. And this is the number it gives. It's on the screen. If you're listening to this on a podcast platform, go ahead and check out the episode show notes. I left the YouTube link in there. You may want to see this. This is another episode where there is a slideshow and there are nice visuals. So this is what it said from Zillow: $361,263. Here's the number again, $361,263. I wanted to show this and zoom in because this says that the data is good through March 31st of 2025, which is only about 20 days ago because I'm recording this on April 20th, 2025. So that's a pretty good number. We can go with roughly $361,000. So that is the average house cost in the U.S. Now, if you're up in the Northeast where I am, that seems cheap. If you're maybe down south in parts of Texas, that seems expensive, but this is why it gives you the average house cost in the United States. Now, in order to figure out when basically the one Bitcoin is going to be able to buy one home or one house in the U.S., the average single family home, we need to understand the annual appreciation rate of a U.S. home. And so I was looking at that as well. This is the best number that I came up with. And it said over the last 20 years, U.S. homes have appreciated by an average of 4.4% annually. And that is according to Freddie Mac. So that's the number that we're probably going to use. Once again, you should never use things in the past to try to forecast the future, but it is kind of the best information we have. So remember that number, 4.4. Now, I need to figure out what is the annual appreciation rate for Bitcoin moving forward. What could that be? This is even more of a crystal ball. If we think the 4.4% from Freddie Mac is crystal ball, the 29%, I kind of jumped ahead, the 29% that we're going to talk about for Bitcoin that Michael Saylor actually outlined in his keynote back in Nashville in 2024 at the Bitcoin conference. And you can see it here, and I'll zoom in on that more. There it is in the bottom. You can see of his base case by 2045. He does say his base case is Bitcoin will be 13 million by 2045. And in order to do that, he had a starting price of 65,000, which is what the price was in Nashville in July of 2024. And he says in order to get there, you have an ARR of 29%. Zooming in a little bit more there, you see that. So we are going to use this 29% number and a 4.4% number. 4.4% comes from 2 decades of information from Freddie Mac of looking back. The 29% is really crystal ball, and it's really looking forward, and it's a pretty bullish number, to be fair. To have an annual, compound growth of 29 or ARR of 29 is very, very bullish. But once again, we're going to use these numbers, and as always, this is edutainment and not financial advice. So for this analysis, we're also going to use the Bitcoin price of 85,000. I haven't checked the price in the last hour, but when I last checked, it was 85,000. So as of today's recording, it was 85,000. That is the number that we are going to use. Very simply, here's the chart. Okay, we're in the year 2025. We're assuming that the Bitcoin price is 85,000. It will stay that way the whole year. We're also assuming that the housing price is going to stay the average price that it currently reflected as of March 31st, 2025, which is $361,000. And I basically had the chart go all the way until you see here, we have the point where basically they are going to surpass one another, or basically the Bitcoin price is going to surpass the housing price, right? The Bitcoin price in 2025 starts at 85,000. The housing price in 2025 starts at 361,000. So we need the Bitcoin price to catch up, which we assume it will do eventually if it is growing at around 29% annually, and the housing price is only growing at 4.4%. That happens somewhere, as you can see here, around 2031 to 2032. Now, this makes sense. And I'm not going to call out these numbers. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this makes sense because of the cycle. The cycle will be going from a zombie into a halving. And when that happens, here's also an image of the Bitcoin cycle. We have the halving year, the bull run, which falls, which we are actually in now, even though it doesn't feel like that, probably because of some macroeconomic things that we're not going to dive into right now. Then you have a cooling year, and then you have what I call a zombie year, or people call it a bear market, but for me it's a zombie because it's not quite dead, but it feels dead. So the numbers that we've looked at today are really showing that somewhere between 2031 and 2032, based on a 29% annual, compound of Bitcoin and a 4.4% annual compound of the housing, somewhere between 2031 2032, we're going to see that. And that does align, once again, with the Bitcoin cycle per the chart I'm showing here. But I want to interject now my own opinion of when I think this could happen. I put this out on Threads on April 8th, 2024. And so far, the 100K plus in 2024 did hit. I'm still thinking we're probably going to hit 225 or 200K by the end of 2025. Let's see. Once again, not financial advice. But if you can see here, and I zoom in a little bit, in 2029 is where I'm saying we probably get somewhere between 400K to 600K, which would absolutely crack that number. If we go back in 2029, you can see here we would get to around $430,000. And as we go ahead in 2029, I'm saying we're going to be somewhere between 400K to 600K. So I personally do think one Bitcoin will be able to buy one house in the United States probably by 2029. You can see that's my bull market indicator there. 2028 would be a halving. 2027 is going to be a bear. 2026 is going to be a cooling year, et cetera, et cetera. But I actually think it's going to be in 2029, which leaves me to ask you, when do you think one Bitcoin will be able to buy a house? And I hope if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to leave a comment below, because this is something that I was talking at length with a friend yesterday about this, about Bitcoin, housing. I'm going to do more episodes on Bitcoin and housing, especially as it pertains to millennials. A lot of millennials are finding that, hey, between the taxes, the maintenance, and now if I get in, the mortgage is just so expensive because the interest rates are so high. Maybe I should be putting money in other things that are a little bit more liquid and waiting to see what happens with housing. This is not financial advice, once again, but I'm very interested. When do you think one Bitcoin will buy one house? As always, please follow us on social media at Future Signal Pod. Be sure to, subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, and subscribe if you're listening to this on a podcast platform. Thanks once again. And please let me know, when do you think one Bitcoin will buy a house? I've shared my magic sauce here. I think it's in 2029, not financial advice, but we'll have to see. As always, thanks so much for checking out this episode, and I'll see you next time.